Hello and welcome to the world as we see it. My name is Lloyd Hobart Mitchell, and I'm an ordinand with the St George's congregation here in Pattaya in Thailand. My formation, the training which I'm going through to train as a priest, is being overseen in context by Father David Price, who is the chaplain of St George's, and also more or less every week. And there's Father David liking the transmission because he can hear us, which is a great service to me. I can't tell you how useful it is to have that system in place. I was just about to say that as part of my in context formation, I meet with Father Tom, the former chaplain of St George's, every week on a Tuesday. Although this week, because I'm trying to just get ahead in terms of the reflection and assignment I'm writing for Sarum College, we didn't meet. Actually, it was quite lucky because I said, well, maybe we could skip it for the day, and he said, well, actually, I'm out anyway. So that worked out very well. Now, one thing I want to do, I'm going to just draw your attention to something that's over my shoulder on the shelf there. And it's a lovely wooden laser cut, I don't know how to best describe it, something which is very lovely. And it was sent to us. Let me just take it down. It's very fragile, right? And I'll try and show it to you. So it says, be still and know that I am God. And very kindly, I'm really touched actually, because very kindly, oops, let me carefully balance it back up there. That was sent to me by Elizabeth Ferguson, who's in Australia, and she tunes in on Facebook and sometimes on Twitch, and I can't say I'm just really touched by it. We Father David and I both received this card from Elizabeth, which is very kind of her, and it's just a little token of thanks. I won't read the message because it's very lovely and private, but it did include this little portrait of somebody who is the first patron saint, or I say patron, she's the patron saint of many things, but it's the first Australian saint, the first Australian citizen to be canonised by the Catholic Church. And it's a woman she's called Mary of the Cross Mckillip, and she died, I think, in something like 1909, the early part of the 20th century. And the process to get her made into a saint, the process to get her canonised, began in the 1920s and only finished, I think, in 2010, about 11 or 12 years ago, when in a ceremony within St. Peter's, she was canonised. So that's very lovely too, considering all of the conversations that we have been having about the equality of women. We have done quite a lot of work over the past couple of months with the help of the How Not to Read the Bible, and also we had the Saints' Day of Mary Magdalene, and we've had various conversations about the equality of women within the church, and the fact that the first saint of Australia is a woman, I think is marvellous. So yes, thank you for that, Elizabeth. I did send you a message, and I did say I would be talking about it on Twitch, but actually I'm just really touched. So I received that gift on just prior to our service on Sunday, our Eucharist service on Sunday, which was in celebration of All Saints Day. So yeah, it's lovely. Thank you very much. Now, moving on, today is Tuesday, and what that means is it's homily night for us. We are going to be looking at the homily which Father David read on Sunday. And then after that, when it comes, following the Lord's Prayer, when it comes to the collect for the day, what we are going to be saying is actually a prayer which has been published on the Church of England Facebook page, specifically in relation to the COP26 meeting, which is taking place in Glasgow at the moment. So we're not taking the prayer of the day. Instead, we will be collectively praying for the success of the COP26. So hopefully everyone approves with that. And seeing as I've had no dissenters, I've had no comments saying, no, don't do that. Instead, I think what we'll do is move on to the homily. So, oh, no, that's Mary Mckillip. Okay, so there you are. She's found on Wikipedia, actually. Now I've seen that, what I can do is I will send everyone the link to her information. That's a good idea. I do like it when Providence intervenes sometimes. It makes it very easy to share. And what we'll do is we will go to the St. George's website. And from our website, we're going to try and find the homily. And let's do that. Computer's a little bit slow, as it always is when we are trying to use the internet proper at the same time as streaming. But hopefully the quality is not bad today. I've closed everything else down, and so it should be okay. So we're clicking on the top bar, the sermons button, and once we click on the sermons button, we should be able to find, come on, it's coming soon, don't worry. I always get worried when it suddenly turns a single colour and stays like that for what feels like an eternity. But okay, so I haven't finished building the page. Oh no! Now that's interesting, because we're looking for the 23rd Sunday after Pentecost, right? So what we'll have to do, this is because I haven't finished building the order of service, okay, and I feel terrible because I know that I completely destroyed the link only about 25 minutes ago, less than that, 20 minutes ago, because I was mucking about trying to get the order of service for this forthcoming Sunday finished. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to have to do it the old-fashioned way and just use a link from the post on the website. But that's okay. By tomorrow morning, in about 8 hours, 9 hours time, all of the links will be working beautifully again. Okay, so just because it doesn't work right now because I've messed it up, that doesn't change anything. So this will take us to where we need to go. And I'm pleased that actually that's happened, because it does spur me on to fix things, right? Very often, you know, we think, oh, everything's okay, you know, there's no rush, but actually, as soon as something doesn't work, it does make me suddenly, it gives me extra motivation, gives me a little bit of a kick, right? So we'll go directly to the sermon on the 31st of October, which was Sunday gone, and I think that's going to do it. It's gone green again. Okay, is it going to work? Come on. Yes, it will. I'm sure it will. And I know it's here because I did it yesterday. And so we can go to the expandable accordion, and we'll go to the homily. And for those of you, just so that you know what I'm doing, in fact, what I'll do is I will share the link to this. So for anyone who really wants to see it, you'll be able to. Okay, you won't have to wait for me a few hours. Instead, you can just go straight for it. And if you wanted, while I read it, if you wanted to look at the words, you'll be very, very welcome to. So there's the link for that, and I'll send that link there as well. Okay, so everyone has got the links which I'm looking at now. Okay, so we've got the homily, and obviously it's for All Saints' Day, and so let us begin then, shall we? It says, All Saints' Day is one of the most underrated church holy days of the year. It is overshadowed by its more glamorous cousin, Halloween, similar to how Holy Saturday gets lost in Holy Week. But All Saints' Day can bring us a unique blessing, just as Holy Saturday does, because they are days that are about how some of the darker parts of human experience can be washed in holiness when they are brought before God. All Saints' Day is so important because it is the one church holy day set aside during the year to tend to our grief. We experience grief on Good Friday and Holy Saturday, but that grief is for the suffering and death of Christ and the grand theological ideas that accompany them. All Saints' Day is for us, for remembering the people we loved, who were important to us, who made an impact on our lives, and then died and left us behind. And I'm going to just stop there because I really do think that for me, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm sure that there are lots of other folk who have had a much tougher time than I have, okay, in terms of death and dealing with death and grief. However, for me, All Saints' Day, the time when we can really, of course there are, those anniversary days when folk have died and we think of them. But All Saints' Day is really it's like a milestone, I suppose, in the year for me, when I am able to really think about the folk who have gone. And specifically, I think about my mother and my father and my paternal grandfather and my maternal grandmother. So my mum, my dad, my granddad, and my nan. And those are the people who have died and whose death really affected me in a bad way. It can only be said that I don't really cope with bereavement very well. Maybe no one does, but some people are able to deal with it a lot better than I am. I've got a huge amount of respect for those people who are able to just crack on, whereas I, for years afterwards, am still somewhat damaged by it. And All Saints' Day is an opportunity for me. I mean, even just talking about it, actually, I can feel emotions welling up. So All Saints' Day for me is really dreadfully important, and I find it very cathartic to have that service and to hear Father David's homily during that service, and to reflect on those people who made an impact on me and who died and left me behind. And obviously not just me, my family, their loved ones. So, yeah, what Father David is saying resonates with me. Now, I know there are some folk who don't, for whatever reason, think that, once somebody has died, we should pray for them. They're with God. Nevertheless, I actually think the process of grief and bereavement means that those of us who are left behind actually do need to pray for those people who have died, for our loved ones, and we should be doing it routinely, not making a big song and dance about it. Don't get me wrong, right? I'm not like morbid. I don't have some sort of morbid interest in the dead. There's not some sort of Victorian thing occurring. But what I mean is that I think I remember reading that in some Native American traditions, there was the belief that so long as people continued telling stories about their ancestors, then the spirits of those ancestors were still alive. And I actually think that idea holds water. I think that we have lots of tales in our family about different ancestors, doing this or saying that or giving credit to this or that, and I think it's very useful. And I think their memory, their spirit does live on, whilst people who are living remember them. Also, there's the ritual in Mexico, the Day of the Dead, when photographs and portraits of ancestors are put up, and people have a fiesta, a party, knowing that the spirits of their ancestors are there with them, literally believing that their spirits are with them. And I actually think that that's rather healthy, to deal with death in a very open way. I think that death very often is taboo, and I think All Saints' Day, or certainly it is in the UK, it's a rather taboo subject. But I think All Saints' Day just gives us license to chat about it and to talk about it. And whenever there is license to talk about death as a part of life, as a natural consequence, something we will all face, I think that's rather useful. Okay, so let's get on. So it says, grief is one of life's most powerful human experiences. And grief is often very lonely. Many of us have awakened on the morning after the death of a loved one and simply marvelled at how the sun can rise another day and the earth can continue to turn after our world has been abruptly destroyed. We are grateful for all the concern friends and colleagues show us, but find it so strange to realise that whilst they truly felt sorry for us during the time they were in conversation with us, or the moment they kindly took to send us a card or email, this event that turned our world upside down really meant very little to them. And it's true, isn't it? And I think it's quite interesting because grief is a strong emotion where empathy, our understanding of how other people feel, can be confusing. And I think equal to that is love. For anyone who's been in love, it's certainly my own experience. It's been a similar kind of. Oops, that fallen over. I'm sorry, Elizabeth Ferguson, but your gift has just toppled over because of the wind from the aircon. So let me just stand that up there. That should be better now. So yes, love and grief, I would argue, are both quite, isolating experiences. People would say, "Oh, I'm very pleased that you're happy. I'm very pleased that you found someone," or whatever. But they've got no idea of the breadth or depth of emotions that make up the feeling of love, and well, at least in terms of your regard for that other person. They obviously have their own concept of love with people who they are in love with. So, but in terms of grief, exactly the same. I think it's it's difficult, isn't it? It's very, very difficult. Yeah. It says, we're not angry at them. Of course, no one would love or care for or agonize over our departed loved ones the way our own family would. But it is just so surreal to realise that after someone says something kind to us about it, that person will go right back to thinking about what to put on the dinner table or whether to go to the movies that weekend. It is a realisation that all of us have at some time or another, that our own personal battles and tragedies and defeats really matter very little in the big picture of the world. And it's true, we are somewhat inconsequential, and it's strange, isn't it? It's a strange thing, because on the one hand we are inconsequential, and yet on the other hand, individuals can affect and influence so much. So it's a very interesting notion, this idea. But yeah, certainly not many folk will share our grief. That's true. They matter very little 364 days a year in 99.9% of the places on this earth. But our grief does matter on this day, in this place, on All Saints' Day, in God's holy church. The losses that we have borne over the years come front and centre and are named for all to hear on holy ground. On All Saints' Day, our grief is no longer lonely and isolating, but we gather in this sanctuary and let our grief bind us together in a new and powerful way. And I think that's one of the benefits, one of the great things of collective worship. I think one of the great things of attending a church, specifically around the time of All Saints' Day, it's very, very good, right? So, why have I squished that so silly? Anyway, yeah, it's very, very powerful indeed, actually. And it's interesting because, everyone is affected by grief. Everyone over a certain age, that is. No one can avoid that for their whole lives. And if they do amazingly, they're going to be faced with their own mortality anyway. But I do think that dealing with other people's passing is another good way of thinking about our own mortality. it's useful. Now, Father David goes on. All Saints' Day is an important ministry to us in our losses, because it helps us re-enter that place of mourning in a rhythm, year after year, each November, as the green and life of the summer die and go to their winter rest around us. So we bring up the pain of loss on purpose in this rhythm year after year. And each year that we revisit the loss, the pain softens and loses a little sharpness, begins to go to its own winter rest. Every time we name our loved ones among the saints, we honour not only their lives, but our own long battle with memories, both painful and joyful. And again, I mean, just this really, it touches on what I was saying earlier on. I think that it's really important. I can't remember where I've seen that that phrase, "What is remembered never dies," is a lovely phrase, and it's true, isn't it? You know, because of the human capacity to visualize, to literally summon up a thought and be able to see it in our mind's eye. It's extraordinary, and the memories that we are able to evoke, smells even, you know, memories of holidays or celebrations, Christmas dinners, birthday dinners, people laughing, how people responded to jokes, how they cried. All of these things come up, you know, this huge catalogue of memories, and it's important that we go over them, we think about them, we revisit our loved ones' faces, the creases in their skin, and remember them. Really make a point of remembering them. We don't need ritual. We don't necessarily need to visit graves, especially if we're living 9,000 kilometres away. But I think we do need to take the time to remember people, so that they stay alive with us. Now, and it is so important to honour their memories. Most of our departed loved ones had a funeral to commemorate them. But the funeral happens right after the loss, and often our emotions are completely chaotic. Not to mention the practical circumstances we are trying to manage. If you have lost someone close to you, either due to sudden accident or long illness, you'll probably remember the days in the immediate aftermath as a haze of confusion. There are hundreds of details to attend to: notifying friends, organising a service, getting together money for the funeral, thinking about wills and estates. The volatility of family brought together in a pressure cooker of emotion. Frankly, it is often not a time to treasure the memory of the departed. Many grieving families float through the funeral in a sort of disconnected shock. And it's true, I'm recollecting the funeral of my mother and father. And both of them. In fact, it's quite bizarre because both, even if I really try, I can vaguely remember the building, but I can barely remember the day, any detail of it. I can remember who was there pretty much, but in terms of what was said, I don't remember it. I don't remember. I think my brain has completely blocked out both of those services, and I'm, in as much as I was emotionally numb on the days and the weeks and probably the months after them, my recollection is completely, Father David says it very well. He says it's a haze. Well, it's more than a haze in terms of those two in particular, because I have zero ability to recall memories on those. And I think that's probably just the subconscious trying to protect me from what was trauma. Yes, I can't remember. Can't remember the days. Anyway, maybe there's therapy to be had there. Who knows? Anyway, now let's then carry on. This is where All Saints' Day comes to our aid once again. There is no chaos. There are no arrangements to be made. No being singled out to sit at the front of the church in a black suit or dress. No finding directions to the cemetery. We are all in this together, and the ones we are remembering are long settled in their resting places. It's the chance to be private about our grief, taking out our memories in the quiet of our hearts and turning them over one by one, taking our time to remember and reflect. But we all enter that sheltered and quiet heart space of our own at the same time, in the same place. As you bring up the faces of your dearest departed before your mind's eye, cherishing the chance to do so peacefully and uninterrupted, your neighbour is doing the same. We enter the valley of the shadow of death together and walk through it in solidarity with one another. And that's exactly what I was saying. I think the collective worship which takes place in a church during All Saints is lovely, because there is a huge amount of support in the room for everyone. And it's very personal, because each and every one of us will be thinking of different people. It's very interesting. There is someone else who is in solidarity with us in our grief, and that is Jesus. In our gospel today, we see him in the exact situation we have faced in our own lives, the inevitable but painful death of a loved one. Lazarus had been sick, and they all knew there was a possibility he might die. But even Jesus can't quite believe it at first. He doesn't want to believe it and asks if he's been buried, hoping maybe the message has got twisted along the way and Lazarus is still just sick. He said, "Where have you laid him?" They said to him, "Lord, come and see." Jesus began to weep. And I think this is interesting because, of course, Jesus being Jesus would have known that Lazarus was dead, right? He knows everything that's going to happen, when it's going to happen, and it's an interesting notion because it's almost like Jesus is playing a part, So he asks this question knowing what the outcome, what the answer is going to be. And I was thinking about this the other day, and I read on some theological blog or other that actually, if ever anyone has re-watched a sad movie, just because you know the ending doesn't mean that the sad bits in the movie are not sad. It doesn't mean that you don't have to cry or can't cry or mustn't cry. You can cry when things are sad, even when you know the outcome. And so I think this is a very nice way of describing what happened there and how and why Jesus cried. He may well have been aware of what the outcome was going to be, not wanting to hear the reality, and sure enough, faced with a sad reality, wept. Father David continues, Jesus sees so much pain in his lifetime, and he bears it so bravely. He sees the suffering of his people crushed under the imperial rule of Rome, and he doesn't cry. He sees 5,000 hungry and poor on the hillside needing him to feed them, and he doesn't cry. He sees people tormented by demons, bleeding or paralyzed or diseased for years, and he doesn't cry. He continues his ministry and cares for them. But here, at last, he breaks. And for the simple, everyday loss of a simple, everyday, beloved friend, nothing grand or dramatic. One of his best friends gets sick and dies, and Jesus weeps. And so, perhaps, on this day of letting our heartaches step out into the open on holy ground, we can be in solidarity with Jesus as much as he is with us. He always bears the burden for us. Maybe today we can say, Jesus, we understand how you feel. We're sorry you lost your friend. We love you. Come be with us for a while, and we'll all be in this together. And I like the way Father David said that, because it's a very nice way of, turning things on their heads. I can't help but think that that's a very nice way of saying it. Instead of us following Jesus, as we always do, this is inviting Jesus to be with us. What a lovely way with words. And the fact that we're all in this together, very nice indeed. Now, Jesus brought his friend back, just as on the final day, we will all be brought back to life by him, to live with him and in him. And how did Jesus raise Lazarus? up to new life? How did he bring him back from the dead? By calling his name. Lazarus, come out. Today, we're doing the same thing. We're calling out the names of the ones we loved who have passed on, and they answer. They are resurrected in our hearts, brought to life in this time and place, whether on one side of the border between life and death or the other. We all want to be with our loved ones. As the communion of saints joins spirits across the divide today, we may realize that we are being called by name today as well, named and loved by the ones who have gone before us. Amen. Now, I really like that as well, because that to me resonates with what I was saying about the belief system of some of those Native Americans. I know they were, before anyone gets in touch and says they were pagans. Okay, look, it's interesting, isn't it, that we have this notion of us calling out the names of our loved ones who have gone, and so did they, right? It's interesting that, in other parts of the world there are these very old rituals, and in fact, I know that in China, I can't remember the day, I think it's in September or October time, they have a tomb sweeping day where families will go to the tombs of their loved ones and clean it. They take the time to clean it and refresh the flowers, and they burn some tributes as well. And I know that maybe they're not Christian, but I find it very interesting that it doesn't matter where in the world we are, the notion, the principle is the same. And I think that there is something rather lovely in that, albeit on this day, in terms of All Saints' Day, there's not a huge amount of ritual for it. There is not a huge amount of ritual. It's a private affair. Sorry about that. That was a door opening. So apologies for that. Now, that's having read the homily. I think we've done enough there. And so what we are going to do, we're going to thank Father David, because I think it was a very good homily. It's one that resonates with me individually, and I liked it last year. Not the same homily, of course, but thus then what we will do, we will, as has become our custom, now move to say together the Lord's Prayer. And I very often say that if this, for whatever reason, is not your cup of tea, then you don't have to join in, okay? It's there for those who want to, all right? And if you want to, good. And if you don't want to, then please, what we do ask, what I encourage you to do, is pop your mobile phone down, okay? Give yourself just a few minutes, and maybe having had the homily about All Saints, give yourself a few minutes to just reflect on those folk who are no longer with us, who are no longer with you. And if that means that you have used this time to recognise the importance of All Saints, then good. Just for a few moments, pause for thought. Now, for everyone else, let us pray with confidence to the Father, as our Saviour has taught us. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, for ever and ever. Amen. And this is the prayer which I got from the Church of England today in response to the COP26. It's an act of commitment for the care of creation. Lord of life and giver of hope, we pledge ourselves to care for creation, to reduce our waste, to live sustainably, and to value the rich diversity of life. May your wisdom guide us, that life in all its forms may flourish, and we may be faithful in voicing creation's praise. May the commitment we have made this day be matched by our faithful living. Amen. So, thank you very much for that. Thank you very much for joining me, being with me on this step of my journey along the road to ordination. My journey, and yes, that's the aim of everything we're doing at the moment. Everything I'm doing at the moment is taking me one step at a time closer to fulfilling the call. Now, without further ado, what I will do is say to you, I'm back tomorrow. We'll be talking, no doubt, about my reflection, my assignment, and that's it. So without further ado, I will say, with prayers and best wishes, bye-bye for now. And see you tomorrow.